in part one, Dating the Kingdom Way, 12 questions you should ask as a lady.
The first thing we go wrong is we've taught our boys and our girls how to get a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
I I guess the question should be asked, what is the purpose of dating?
Ah, exactly. And for me, again, it's to find a mate.
The end product of dating is, I believe, to marry.
And not to get a friend, not to hang out, not to Netflix and chill. When someone takes you out on a date, they're saying that I am interested in you becoming my mate. And if that's not their intentions, you should not be going out on a date. Because that's what a date means. Okay? Now, if someone is taking you out and they're not calling it a date, that means they're not interested in you becoming a mate.
We're going to start with the ladies.
We're going to start with the ladies. These are 12 questions you should ask a guy, okay, that you're going to allow to take you out on a date. That means he's looking for a mate.
And again, we are speaking to citizens of the kingdom, believers.
First question you should be asking an individual is, are you a believer? Okay? Are you a part of the kingdom of heaven?
Yes.
And if they say yes, and you don't know them, okay? And you don't know them, and they say yes, you should say, tell me your testimony. Okay? The next question, which is a $1 million question that you have to ask. This should be day one of the date. Do you have a job? And how long you been on it?
What?
Yes.
You mean I gotta ask him that?
You listen. A man that can't provide for you will frustrate you, will pull your head out of your head. One of the greatest needs for a woman is security. I don't care how independent you are. I don't care how you could do for yourself. One of the greatest needs that you have is security. And a guy that can't provide will frustrate you to death.
Yes, it is quite a
hot topic.
And I believe that we're going to have some really good insight. And more than anything, I believe the Lord is going to reveal we're going to break up some strongholds and religious thinking and bring about some truth. And it's like, okay, God, I've given you my quota, my quota of time for the week. I am about my own business. See you later. See you next week.
Is Christianity a mere set of religious rituals and doctrines, or does it encompass something deeper? A kingdom with its own laws, principles, values, culture, and dynamics. I'm thrilled to have you join us today as we dive into a topic that sparks curiosity and contemplation. Okay? After then figure it out, if you still around, okay.
and I was going to say, you don't have to put your life on hold for him to do that.
No.
If he wants, tell him he's got a time period, or else you moving on.
Yeah.
And you may say, oh, that's being cold and harsh.
No. But here's the thing. You ain't even remember now. You ain't.
We even ain't started this yet.
We out on a date.
We qualifying.
Qualifying
right
now. Remember now, we're looking for a mate.
Yeah.
We ain't looking for someone to hang out with to say that's my boyfriend.
Yeah,
you're looking for a mate.
Like I always say, when someone approaches you and is talking about dating, and you start talking about dating, you want to ask the question, do you want to take me out for friendship or for mateship? If it's for friendship, I don't know. Because I don't want you filling the space that somebody else who has long-term commitments.
And here's what a lot I don't hear people talking about in the church. This thing about dating around and dating to see one another and dating to see what's out there, that's problems.
I heard someone say
that's problems.
I remember one guy said to me, he was like, before I met you, while I was single, we were talking about dating, and he said, I think it was in a singles meeting or whatever. We had a singles group, and he was like, I have to. It's like a buffet. I have to see what's on the buffet and taste it. To determine what I want. I said, this one item is not on the buffet.
But
I'm sorry.
Again, anyone who stepped to you, want to take you on a date, their intention should be in your mind that they're looking for a mate. And you're going to clarify these just with our questions. Okay?
And you find out.
Okay,
let me let you go
We're going to get to those questions that you're going to ask. Your next question that you should be asking, okay, is who are you accountable to?
Okay.
Spiritually, who are you accountable to? That's very important.
Ooh.
A lot of marriages break up simply because there's no spiritual covering, no spiritual system set up, no covering system set up spiritually. And what do I mean by that? My wife, at any given time, if I go out of order, I start doing something that's non-biblical, okay? She has the right to go to one of 3 men in my life that I hold as spiritual covering and spiritual mentors. And because of our relationship, they can speak to that situation. And that should get me to walk right because of the relationship I have with them. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
When you marry a guy who doesn't hold himself accountable to no one, you have no recourse when stupid issues come up in your marriage. When he's totally out of order. You have no spiritual recourse. Because why? You're going to find this fella off the street, talk, but you getting married to him. You all get married. 2 years later, you can't get him to come to church. You can't get him to tithe. You can't get him to get involved. You can't get him to take it. You can't get him to provide. So who can help you? The only thing we can do...
And he is accountable to no one. Even, and the thing about it is, even ladies, you want the man that you are submitted to be submitted to someone.
Yep.
Number one, his first head is Christ.
Yep.
And in his head being Christ, he understands that he needs to have godly men as mentors and individuals that he can go to for counsel, he can go to for correction, that he's submitted under.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very important because, like Jamin was saying, if he decides, and we know we all run up against the pride of life, the lust of the eye, the pride of life, and and greed, and all of these things. These devils start coming up at you, and you lose your insanity for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
He needs someone to be able to yank his coattail and kind of bring him to his senses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same way with us as women, but we're talking about women, what you need, what are the qualifications and questions you have to ask. So there has to be someone in his life that could bring him in check if he gets out of bounds or if things go awry.
And if he doesn't believe that needs to be the case, stay away. Because why? Because we are moral beings. Because we are human. You want to make sure you have a backup. A lot of women say, we stuck in this relationship and we don't know. How you get stuck? The only way you get stuck is if you do it wrong. If you do it wrong, that's the only way you get stuck.
And if you find yourself, if you're just hearing this message, and you find yourself in there, again, I always say, I have a daddy.
Pray.
I have a heavenly father.
Pray.
And even if my husband decide that he don't want to listen to no one, I know someone who got his card.
Pray.
And trust me, There are times that many times I haven't had to, I don't recall having to go to anyone else one or two times. But I would go in my closet and I would get on my knees and pray and intercede and put that before the Lord. And that is again one of the reasons why you want to be yoked to a believer.
Yep.
Because then that believer,
you have an
believer's heart is responsive to God.
And you have an accountability system in place in the body. You also have accountability system based on his relationship with Christ. So that's very important. Very important.
Yeah.
The next question you should ask, and you should ask this, I would ask this date 1 or date 2. How are we gonna maintain purity in our relationship? That's a tough question to ask, but the earlier you ask that, the sooner you know where he is.
Yep.
Because why? You let him know. How the song go? If you want,
you gotta put a ring on it. If you want this thing, you gotta put a ring on it. I don't know how the song goes.
Like that.
Honestly, I haven't even heard it. I only know about the talk. You gotta put a ring on it.
Yes, sir. So if you ask him that question, how do we do that? Do we double date? Do we make sure we have a chaperone? What is going to keep us pure? Because why? You human and he human.
And hormones go away.
And yes,
and so when you think about it, when you look back at I look even at my grandparents' time, you were not left in a room alone. If you came to courting, you were courting with mama you were on one side of the couch and he on the other side and mama in between.
Yes, sir.
And y'all talk what you got to talk over there, over her. And what did that do? That provided a sense of dignity, that protected your integrity and your dignity as a woman, as a female, and that ensured that the temptation for sex prematurely was avoided.
Yep.
And we like to throw the modern trump card.
Not the kingdom citizens, starting out.
And don't understand that, to me, that's a setup of the enemy to cause us, to get us in trouble early.
Next question you ask, very important. What does your vision of a happy family look like? Because let me tell you something. You got some people who come from some funny family with some funny thinking. And you need to know, what does it look like? What do I mean by that? Do you want me to work? You don't want me to work? Okay? Do you like to take vacations? You don't like to take vacations. Okay, that's part of the vision. We gonna have 2 kids or we gonna have 22 kids. All right? That's part of the vision. You want a house or you believe in apartments?
Or you want us to camp out in the wilderness and rough
this
it.
This part of the vision. What do you see for our family? How would you see if we got married? I'd build a scenario. If one day I said yes to you, okay, and we go through our courtship and day 1 we wake up and we are married, what does that look like? Now notice the first question of vision was where he was going, where he see himself going. The next question is the vision for the family. Okay?
Good question.
And that's a very good question. Now, he may need your help to plug in some details, but you need to make sure that he's thinking that way. Because if he isn't thinking that way, you're going to have a problem. We have another question. How long should it be before we talk wedding? Women, y'all don't like to see. Y'all don't like to talk this stuff. Y'all wait for it. Y'all hope the guy bring it up. You ask them questions. Day 2.
But
day 1, day 2.
But don't you think that's gonna run the guy?
Perfect. That means he ain't the one. Perfect. Okay. You're not looking for someone. You remember, you were the prize. You were the prize.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If he don't want the prize, let him move right along. But question, that's the first.
And ladies, a point there. You have to be able to let him go.
Yep.
And not be desperate and think that one is the only one. Because even God didn't make Eve an ultimatum for Adam.
Mm-hmm.
He presented the woman to him. He didn't tell him, here, this is your wife.
Yep.
No. Adam had to say, okay, wow, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. You have to have that connection. You have to know in your gut, in your spirit, in your heart, in your soul that, yes, this is the one that is gonna, I am okay and I'm willing and I want to spend the rest of my life with. That is a choice. And there's this fallacy that has gone around, and at one point I even believed it, that the first guy that came to me and said, the Lord told me he was my husband, you're my wife, I was like, what? Lord? This it? and I had to go to prayer about that, and then and God was like, the choice is yours if you want that one. So you have the choice.
And the question in that question is, how long does it take before we start talking marriage? I tell people 6 months to a year. If a fella can't make up his mind 6 months to a year, move right along. You don't need to be dating no one, no 2 years, no 3 years, no 4 years.
7 years.
Trust me.
7 years?
If he tell you, well, I gotta go build my house first and I gotta go do that, let him go do that, then come back to you. Don't, because why? Your feelings could get hurt. And the only one to blame when that happened is you.
I've seen a lot of scenarios where a young lady has been with a guy for 2, 3, 4 years, and he's not made a commitment. And then all of a sudden, he goes off, and the next thing she hear, he marrying someone else. And all of your time you've spent, you've spent yourself with him.
Give your heart.
And in many cases, in a relationship that long, that means that you've become sexually involved. So he has gotten all of the perks and the benefits of marriage with no commitment, and then he goes off and marries someone else. Do not allow yourself
6 months
to be devalued like that.
6 months to a year. When you ask that question, let him know. See what his answer is. If he ain't know, he ain't sure, move right along. You don't need to worry about if you can give him another date. Move right along. He's someone don't know what he wants. And that's a problem. A guy who don't know what he wants will lead you down a big...
Down to nowhere.
A serious rabbit hole down to nowhere. Exactly. Our next question is, again, this is a first and second day question. You got kids? Okay? Do you have kids? And if they say they do, the next question is, so how often do you see them?
How involved are you in their life?
How involved are you in their life? Now, there are some scenarios. Where a couple gets together, they got married, they get divorced, and one of the mates, the mother moves off with the kids. Not a city, not a country, is hard. But even in that case, he should be calling his child once a week. These are signs. If you find yourself in situations where you meet a guy who have kids, and one, he don't talk about it, and two, you don't hear him call them, that's a red flag.
Yep.
That's a big red flag. And I know the drama,
the baby mama
drama, or what they will sell you on. Let me tell you again, a guy who has kids who don't take care of them, that's a sign of what he will do when you guys have kids. Don't say it ain't gonna be me. It ain't gonna ever happen. But if he ain't do it with the first set of kids, he ain't gonna do it with the second set of kids. So, that's another question you ask. Do you have kids? How often you see them? How often you take care of them? Now, I'm gonna let you know something. If you come across a guy who takes care of his kids even though the relationship is not in place, you don't have to worry about how he's gonna treat your kids. There's no doubt. Because why? He's taking care of a child that he's not connected to with the mother on an ongoing basis. Okay?
Yeah.
And an obvious question, but some women don't ask it, or they ask it after they get their hearts involved. Were you married before? Ever been married? And the next question should be, if they say yeah, what happened? And if they ain't prepared to share what happened, that's another red flag.
Yeah.
Okay? That's another red flag. And I know people say, dying my business.
Oh, yes,
me,
it is.
That's your business.
And I believe that is very important because if we're looking at going down the road to dating, that means we're looking at going down the road to marriage. I should at least have, and I think one of the biggest things one of the foundations that a dating relationship should be built on is truth and trust.
Yep.
Truth and trust. And there are things that you want to know. I mean, you may need to gauge how all of the details are shared as you go on, but I should know up front whether you've been married or not.
These questions are date one, date two questions. Date one, date two questions. If you're not prepared to ask these questions, don't start dating, because something can get messed out. A lot of times, Nicole and I sit with couples, and our question is always, "How did you get this far in a marriage and didn't know this and this?" These are simple questions that individuals should ask day one, day two.
When Jamin and I met, and on that first, that wasn't, I guess it was a date, but we went to lunch, and we sat down, we talked. I had my list of questions, 100 questions. I didn't ask him all of them that day, but critical questions I began to ask him. And then when he decided that he wanted to pursue the relationship towards marriage, that's when all of the others, that was by the time I saw him the second time, he was at the end of by the end of that first weekend, he was committing the relationship to marriage.
Listen, a guy who knows what he wants don't have to beat around the bush. Okay? A guy who knows what he wants doesn't have to beat around the bush. Will not take you around the corner, up and down. I know some guys, they like to take their time, but they ain't gonna take more than a year. Okay? But anytime you have a guy who don't know, they don't have a clue, they ain't ready for marriage, well, why are you talking? Why are you all having a conversation?
Yeah, why are you spending my time?
Why are you spending the time?
See, and what that is so important, because ladies, we have to understand that how easily we can get emotionally attached, and our hearts get thrown in there. God, the Word of God says, guard your heart with all diligence. Ladies, guard your heart with all diligence. You are not laying your heart out and everything out to this fellow right away. You have to, especially in the initial stage, and it's easy to get caught up in that whirlwind of feelings. But we have to, this is the time, especially early on, where the feelings are not set in good, that you ask the sober questions, and before you determine whether you're going to jump in with full wholesale. And then you have a hard time swimming out.
Yep.
It's hard to swim out. So it's better to make sure that you check the pool to make sure it's deep enough.
Yep.
Make sure it's clean enough. No piranha swimming in it. And before you make your dive in.
Yep. And it's one of those things that If you ask the questions early on, you don't have to worry about the issues. You would know.
Or you know what you're getting yourself into.
You can prepare for it. You can prepare. You can prepare for all of the drama that comes with knowing something. When when you give a guy an opportunity to take you out, he should know. Boy, let me tell you something. That girl, she know what she looking for, or she at least know how to qualify or disqualify. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're Jamin and Nicole Farrington, and we are excited. The kingdom of heaven is here.